Very much to Darth. And yes, as mentioned, hello everybody. My name is Kirsten and I work in the early careers team at NatWest Group and specifically within the attraction team. So here at NatWest Group, our purpose is to champion potential. So we are really passionate about helping people, families and businesses to thrive. And that is exactly what we're here today to do. So my role specifically is to empower students from diverse backgrounds to make quality applications. So yeah, a huge big warm welcome from me to today's event. Discover how to start your career with a NatWest Group Insight Week or internship. Brilliant to see lots of people joining us live, which is fab because I know that you're all busy and I'm sure there's an abundance of different virtual events that you could be on at any given time. So thank you very much for joining. And we are really excited to be here too as part of our partnership with Boost Your Skills and John Smith Group. And we're hoping that we'll be able to share a little bit more about our internships and insight weeks during this virtual event. So if we move on to the next slide, you'll see what we're going to cover over the course of the next hour or so. So first of all, we'll give a quick download on what's involved with our Insight Weeks and internships. Then I'll move on to a bit of a panel event with the three graduates who I'm joined by today, and they'll share a little bit more about their early career experience. I'll get them just to say hello at the moment now on the chat, if that's all right, and do interact with us on there. And then after that, I'll cover some hints and tips about what we're looking for as an employer and how to make a successful application. And then we will end with that Q&A where you can ask our speakers anything. So our hope is that you are going to leave this session feeling clear, capable and motivated about what is involved with an internship and an Insight Week and how to go about making a great application. Now, I always think it must be a bit nerve-wracking joining an event with lots of unfamiliar faces. So there's a couple of points that I just want to add onto what Siddharth was saying, things to mention. We'll be running those polls today, but they are completely anonymous. We are not assessing you in any way today. We won't see your names coming up in those polls. We do really promise we are a friendly bunch, and our grads are probably even a little bit nervous to speak in front of a large audience. So yeah, definitely feel free to interact with us. We are normal humans and we're definitely very friendly. Do engage with us in the chat as we go along. We would love to hear your thoughts or any comments that you have. And if you have questions as you go as well, put them into the Q&A box as we go along, and then we will answer these questions live during the Q&A time. But sometimes it's good just to jot things down as you think of them rather than waiting until the Q&A time at the very end. Right, let's move on to our first anonymous poll then, if that's all right. So this one is a bit around trying to figure out kind of who we're speaking to today, and maybe a little bit around how much you know about internships and Insight Weeks already. So for maybe, yeah, it should be, we've just launched the poll now, so it should be on your screen. So you've got 4 options to choose from in this poll. The question is, how much do you know already about internships and Insight Weeks? And the 4 answers are, I've applied to one already and I'm in the process still of kind of applying to that internship Insight Weeks. That could include if you've got an offer already. Maybe you've applied and you were unsuccessful. Maybe you haven't applied yet, but you are planning to. Or you haven't applied at all and you're not keen to apply in the future. So do vote on these. And then let's see if we can maybe give it another couple of seconds just to have enough time for people to vote. And then maybe once we're up at about 80% of people voted, we can share the results. Perfect. Okay, brilliant. So it looks like we've got the majority of people, 63%, haven't applied yet, but do want to this year, which is brilliant. And we've got a couple of people, 25%, second biggest percentage, have applied already and they're in the process or maybe have an offer already, which is fantastic. So it looks like we've got a couple of people who have applied or want to apply or maybe want to have some tips in terms of kind of what a successful application looks like. So thank you very much, everybody, for voting. Okay, on to the next slide then, if that's all right. And I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of some of the early career opportunities we offer students at university. Now, whilst this undergraduate program information on the screen is specific to NatWest Group, you will find that many other graduate employers have really similar opportunities with very similar names. So just to make you aware of that if you are Googling things afterwards. So to briefly share more information, we have graduate, intern, and Insight Week programs, which offer structured and supported learning. Now, there are 17 different pathways that you can choose from, which I know is an awful lot, and you can only apply to one program per year. But the flip side of that is that it really probably gets you to think about which program specifically would suit your skills, and you will hopefully end up joining an area of the business that really suits you best. So starting chronologically then, I'll go into each program in a little bit more detail. So our Insight Weeks, these ones are for students who are in their first year of study on a 3-year course. So that would normally be, say, at an English university, or you would be in your second year on a 4-year course. So that would normally be at a Scottish university. Our Insight Weeks last 4 days, and then the 5th day of that Insight Week comes a couple of months later, and that takes the form of an assessment centre. This year, the 4 days of kind of Insight Week are running from the 30th of August through to the 2nd of September. Now, just an interest point, something that I would always find interesting to know is that we'll have about 90 Insight Week candidates this year. This program is unpaid, but we would cover any expenses if the program is in person. The last wee while, it's obviously been a virtual event, and we haven't confirmed yet if it's going to be in person or virtual, but we would cover any expenses if it did go in person this year. We're going to hear from our grads a little bit later in terms of what's involved in an Insight Week, but effectively it is a chance to gather more information about the working culture of a company, hear a little bit more about from some of the people that work in the company, and then also a chance for you to ask as many questions as possible during that Insight Week and try to kind of widen your knowledge on the program to see if it could be a good fit for you. If you go onto our website, you'll see that the majority of our programs, apart from the Human Resources Insight Week, are actually aimed specifically for women. Now, the reason for this is that our Insight Weeks are designed to foster early career talent and create a balanced gender environment across our business areas. So from time to time, we do create programs or initiatives designed specifically kind of certain groups of people to even the playing field. And I guess this is one of them. So that's a little bit of rationale of Insight Weeks for men versus women. Just to finish on Insight Weeks, kind of from an early career perspective, we'll hear more about it from our grads, but all of our Insight Weeks at the moment are still open for applications, and there's a variety of different locations that you can apply to. All right, and take a breath, and then moving on to our internships. So our internship programs are for penultimate year students. So this can be if you're in your penultimate year of an undergraduate degree, or a penultimate year of your postgraduate degree. So say you're on a 2-year master's, for example, you could apply to it after the first year. You've still got another year to go. So to make it a little bit more simple, basically you need to be graduating in 2023 to be eligible for an internship. The internships last 8 weeks, and this year they will start on Monday, the 27th of June. And these ones are paid, thankfully. They are paid £21,500 pro rata. Pro rata, a wee bit confusing, but it basically means you would get £21,500 if you were working for the full year. So calculate that back according to what you would work for the 8 weeks. So it's kind of our proportion of that amount. Again, we'll hear from our grads a little bit more about their experience on the internship program, but effectively you would work on a business project during those 8 weeks, and you would also work on a corporate social responsibility project too. So normally this would take the form of perhaps fundraising for one of our charity partners. And I think I can't go to this session without saying that we just won an award last week for the best 2020 internship. So we do definitely promise it is a really worthwhile and good program. And guess hopefully it's great to see that we won an award in that recently. In terms of numbers for this program, we take on about 150 interns each year, and normally about 85% of them convert through to the graduate program, which is really high, which is brilliant. And not forgetting that that is a two-way process too. I guess there will be people who maybe have multiple offers or decide that it's maybe not right for them. So I think 85% is pretty high, which is brilliant. In terms of applications for these ones at the moment, a few of our internship programs are still open for applications. So ones that I would encourage you to have a look at are ones like our Change and Business Solutions program, Internal Audit, and Software Engineering. So those ones are still definitely open for applications. Take another breath and then on to graduate programs. So this, I guess, leads me on to onto the graduate program, then at the end of the internship, you will complete a final project. And if you pass this, you will be offered a position on the graduate program the following year. Now, I won't spend too much time going into the ins and outs of the graduate program because we are focusing in this session on the earlier stages. But I guess ultimately, I felt I had to mention, because the Insight Weeks, the internships all lead towards this final point of the graduate program. And we take on about 250 graduates each year. There is lots of information, I guess, available on our website on all of our different programs. So I would direct you there if you're looking to get a little bit more detail about the specific programs that are still open for applications, or trying to figure out a little bit more about which business area is the right fit for you. We've got all sorts of videos from our graduates on there as well. All right, so hopefully at this point I have piqued your interest, so to speak, in some of our programs. And I think it's time that we hear from our grads, which I'm sure is the part that you are most looking forward to kind of hearing a little bit more about their experience. So as mentioned on today's call, I'm joined by 3 different graduates who are all on different programs, and they all have different backgrounds, of course. So let's maybe get them to introduce themselves just for, say, 1 to 2 minutes. And I'll maybe start with Claire, if that's all right. So if you just want to tell us a wee bit about you, maybe a little bit around your education background, maybe the rotation that you're on at the moment, and say perhaps any interests, a dreaded question, inside or outside of work, so we can get to know you a wee bit more.
Yeah, definitely. So hi everyone, I'm Claire. I studied politics at Glasgow Uni, and I'm currently a commercial banking graduate at NatWest. So I started in September of last year, and it's rotational every 6 months. So I'm still just in my first rotation, which is in Lombard. So that's our asset finance division. I think kind of looking at the Early Careers website just now, they're kind of offering for internships, commercial banking kind of split into customer products and relationship management. So Lombard is more aligned to relationship management, but I'm happy to take any questions on that as well. Prior to that, I did the internship with NatWest as well, commercial banking, which I then converted to the graduate scheme. That was probably a bit of a different experience, and that was over COVID. So when I applied, like, COVID wasn't even a thing. So the assessment centre and everything was as normal. And then lockdown started, and it got moved from, I think, with a 10-week in person to a 4-week kind of condensed virtual experience, which was still really good. Prior to that, I did a Spring Insight Week at Barclays Investment Bank. And I used to work at a call centre during university as well. Outside of work, I getting quite into running recently, which I'm hoping to continue as the weather hopefully gets a bit nicer. And yeah, I like listening to music as well and going to gigs, which I've been enjoying a bit more since everything's getting back to normal. But I'm happy to be here and looking forward to hopefully providing some insights.
Brilliant. Thank you so much there. Yeah, sounds really interesting. All sorts of different hobbies going on there, gigs and running. And yeah, interesting that you've got a bit of a mix of experience with an Insight Week from a different company and then also our internship. So yeah, definitely looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that later. All right, we'll move on to Kenny, if that's all right. So maybe same thing to you, just a wee bit around your educational background, a bit about your rotation on your program that you're on at the moment, and any interests that you have inside or outside work.
Hi everyone, my name is Kenny. I studied at UCL, a subject called Bioprocessing of New Medicine. It sounds long, but it's an engineering-based subject, and it was super fun. I'm currently in my first year on the Structured Finance Graduate Scheme, which I believe is now called the Finance and Solution Schemes. I'm still on my first rotation like Claire, but I will be rotating to my next team, not next week, but the next week. So I'm really looking forward to that. I completed the internship as well in 2020, which I found really good. As mentioned by Kirsten, they did win an award for best internship, so it was definitely good. I didn't do my Insight Week here, but I did do 2 Insight Weeks in asset management. So I'm happy to answer any questions around that as well, and in general about the Structured Finance and Solution Graduate Scheme. And fun fact, so what I like to do outside of work, I do love to travel. Now that the world's opening up, I've already traveled twice since, and hopefully going to travel abroad later this year. And I love to do a lot of baking. So that's a little.
All right. No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Kenny. And 2 questions. Did you and Claire cross paths on the internship?
No, because I think, as you mentioned, it was virtual, but I did cross paths with a lot of different people from other graduates and other internship schemes, but I don't think I happened to cross paths with Claire.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, at least you're on a call now. So it'll be interesting to see how your experiences were the same or different, given that you were on slightly different programs, I guess, within the internship. And then my second question was, where did you travel?
Well, 2 weeks ago, I came back from Dubai, which was amazing.
Oh, wow.
Literally, I went all out. It was fun with my family. And then earlier in the year, I went to Lanzarote.
Oh, very nice. Oh, two very warm destinations.
I know. You need to go warm when you're in England.
A theme on the types of traveling you like. Fab. Oh, well, thank you very much, Kenny, for sharing a little bit more. And then last but not least, we have Ross. I won't repeat, Ross, the points of introduction to cover, just because I feel like that might get a bit boring. But yeah, do tell us a wee bit about you, if that's all right.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So hi, everyone. I'm Ross. I'm on the Human Resources program as well, like the other guys here in my first year, on my first placement, about to start a week from Monday on my second placement in early careers, actually, with Kirsten. So she's going to be seeing plenty more of me. And then so I currently do a placement in performance and business management, which is lots of little different things in HR, picking up different projects and everything like that. So I've been organising big events across the whole function. I've been getting involved in the pay process, which is obviously a very important process that goes on each year. And so a little bit about myself. So I've just moved up to Edinburgh. And I have a huge list of things and recommendations, stuff to do that I need to tick off. And so, yeah, I've just been filling my weekends with that. Not as exciting as Kenny. I haven't been on holiday yet. I've got a holiday planned to France in about a month, and I can't wait. It'll be the first time I've gone away since COVID. So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, for now, it's been sticking around Edinburgh and just filling my time with lots and lots of different things to do.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And yes, maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm also from Edinburgh and living here as well. But there is an awful lot to see and it is a great city. So there we go. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for introducing yourselves. I'm going to come on to a bit of a kind of panel style session now. So our grads have seen these questions in advance, but they don't know who I'm going to ask, I guess. So, and it's genuine answers, so they're not kind of scripted out, etc. So we do want it to feel quite natural. And if there's anything that we don't get round to at this point, or you think, oh, that's interesting, or I'd like someone to expand their answer on that, then start popping it into the Q&A or send us a chat or something. So let's start in kind of chronological order then. And I wonder, Kenny, I'm going to put this question to you around your kind of Insight Week experience, given that you did two different ones. So what was it that, I guess, dare I say, kind of stood out for you in terms of companies, or what were you looking for? Because I'm guessing then you were then still looking kind of elsewhere for something else, or what were some of your main takeaways from Insight Weeks?
Well, first of all, I'll give you a brief lowdown about my experience. It was mainly a week, I think it was 4 days or 5 days experience, and it was at asset management firms. Mainly, I think the purpose of it was for us to get to know what the company was about, the sort of asset managers, as well as the different teams that sit within there. So there's a lot. We had quite a few talks from different people who came and tell us about their teams and what they do. As well as that, I did get to do like a mini project where we researched the company and presented it in front of a panel, which was super fun. It sounds nerve-wracking, but then you get really interested in the company and everyone starts collaborating together, and it's great fun. I think for me, what I was looking for in a company to join was the team members. I think it's really important to be with a team that you know that you will work well with. When you want to do an internship, it tends to be around 8 weeks, and then a graduate scheme could be like 2 to 3 years. So these are the people going to work with in and out, and I wanted to make sure I was in a group of people who I would feel comfortable in and I will be able to collaborate with, and who will also help me grow professionally as well as in the business in the field as well. So, and I've coming from an African background as well, I also wanted to be with a company that did promote diversity and inclusion as well. That was something that was really important to me. One of the reasons why I ended up here at NatWest. I think those are the main things that I really looked for.
So I was too busy nodding, couldn't come off mute. No, I think absolutely. It sounds like it was a bit of a two-way process in lots of ways, that you were almost looking for certain things that you wanted an employer to display that felt like they were matching your values, I guess, and what's important to you. So yeah, definitely sounds like it was a worthwhile experience. So thank you for sharing. Maybe on that point, Claire, I'll just come to you. Did you have a kind of similar experience in what you were looking to get out of an Insight week?
Yeah, I think when you apply for Insight weeks, I think you're still quite young and kind of starting out in your career. So I think I would encourage you, if there is an area that you're maybe a bit interested in, just when you're applying, if you can get more than one, do the 2 or 3, apply to kind of different things and try them out. I think for me, it was as much about kind of eliminating areas that I maybe didn't want to work in, as well as kind of hearing more about areas I was interested in. Kind of echoing what Kenny was saying as well, I think it's a great way to kind of get to know a company's culture. And obviously I was able to do it in person, which I hope you get the chance to do. I think for me, it was a really big kind of confidence builder as well, getting to attend a lot of like in-person networking events. I think was a really kind of good opportunity to kind of get yourself a bit out of your comfort zone, and it's quite a good experience in that sense as well. When I did it, it was Barclays Investment Bank, and then from there I found out about like another company as well called Stafford Long Diversity Solutions, that if anyone kind of wants information on, I can put in the chat as well. And they run kind of diversity and inclusion events. I think it's more aimed at London, but I did one called kind of Fresh Look as well, which was another similar to kind of Bright Network stuff. It was a lot of kind of employers kind of attended, and again, just more networking events. And I think it's just about building confidence and network and kind of learning more about the bank as well. So yeah, it was a really good experience.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing. And yeah, I think it absolutely is about kind of building that network, trying to find out and making your own decision on what the working culture is. Because I think you can read as many brochures until, well, kingdom come, can't you? But I think actually going in and experiencing it for yourself and seeing if it does match up with the feel that you get at an organization, I think is definitely really important. So brilliant. All right. Maybe then it leads us on to thinking about the internship. So obviously at the end of our Insight week, you would then hopefully get a place onto the internship for the following year. Now, all of our 3 graduates on the call completed an internship, but I think everybody was in 2020, right? So it was a little bit, a little bit different. So normally it's 8 weeks. It used to be 10 weeks. Then it went to 4 during the pandemic. So it is a little bit different, but maybe I'll start with Ross, if that's okay, because we haven't heard from you yet, just a bit around your experience on the internship. And maybe given it was so different in 2020, what was kind of the standout thing that you learned during the internship?
Yeah, no, so I think it was a really great internship, and it was fantastic that sort of like, obviously Kirsten touched on championing potential as we opened the call, and it was sort of a real commitment from the bank shown to us that actually the bank was really committed to sort of getting us in as graduates and sort of facilitating our learning. I think what was the standout for me was we had so many people from so many areas of the bank come and speak to us, and what really surprised me was actually, there was quite a lot of senior people that were coming and speaking to us virtually, and it was great to understand all those little different parts of the bank. It wasn't only HR specific for sort of 3 weeks of it. So yeah, 3 weeks was just total for everyone, and then 1 week was HR specific. And I couldn't even believe how many parts of HR there were, let alone how many other parts of the bank there were. So I think it was just really interesting to hear insights from a variety of senior people across the bank, and sort of being able to get yourself out there. And as well, there was plenty of opportunity to network with people as well. So there was a few people in the internship, obviously being virtual, that I just reached out to talk to, and it was so nice for people to just have a little separate Zoom call or a conversation over the phone, just a little about what they do, and it just helps me get a better idea of whether it's something I wanted to do.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Ross. And Kenny, I saw you nodding there. Were you also doing some virtual networking like Ross, or what was your experience like?
I think one thing that I really enjoyed about the internship is that we had pre-arranged coffee chats. Because we're all virtual, we couldn't do that interaction that you would with team members on your desk. So they arranged us to have coffee chats with different people from all over my structured finance scheme, which is really, really good. I got to speak to people from associates to directors who are quite high up in the chain. So it's quite at first daunting, but you realize that they are actually really great people and they have so much stories that they can share with you as well. So I think networking was one of the highlights that I took away from my internship, as well as teaching experiences. Not only did they have people come in to talk to us, we had proactive sessions where we got to get involved or try and do our own modeling or try to do our own pricing. So it was a lot of fun as well, and just meeting other graduates in the team, it was a great experience.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And maybe let's move on from Insight Weeks and internships and try to understand that if you are successful in them, as mentioned, you do then hopefully come through to the graduate program. And maybe, as you said, Claire, there are still a couple of commercial banking programs that are open for applications at the moment. So I'd be really interested to hear just a wee bit more about what a day in your life would look like on the commercial banking program. Sometimes that can be hard to do, and sometimes I get grads in the call, they're like, no, every day is different, I can't answer that. So if you need to make it a week, then then do so.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can. I could probably just give an example of today, to be honest. That might be an easier way to do it. So I probably log on about 8:30, I would say, just to kind of check emails, and I would say look at my diary just to kind of see what meetings and things I have coming up. I think, like I said, I'm in Lombard, so the way that works is I'm probably more aligned to one relationship manager in my team, kind of on the day-to-day, so probably check his calendar as well, and if he's got any customer meetings I could try and proactively help with and send him things for and get involved with. And then, yeah, I think I've normally stopped for a coffee in the morning, take my lunch about 12:30. I think something that's quite good is in NatWest is quite like more, I would say, in a culture aspect about working to live rather than living to work. So they do really encourage you to take like full hour lunches, and everyone's very supportive, and throughout the day you can kind of like call other members of the team just for kind of like chats as well. I know Kenny mentioned kind of coffee chats. This afternoon I'm obviously speaking at this. I'm also a member of the M&C Council, so as a graduate they encourage you to kind of get involved with councils as well. A bit like kind of when you're starting university, you'll kind of get invited to a lot of things like that. Yeah, so I got a meeting with them later on this afternoon as well, and then yeah, probably another coffee break in the afternoon, and then log off about 5 o'clock. Like I was saying about the work-life balance, I genuinely would say I don't ever probably work past about 5 o'clock, 5:30, unless I've got something really kind of busy or a deadline in terms of writing an essay or something. But they do really encourage a good work-life balance. Other than that, the stuff I get involved in is probably largely project-based as well in the graduate scheme, so it's a lot of kind of presenting, but just good for building confidence and everything as well, I would say.
Brilliant, thanks very much, Claire. And yeah, I guess I would echo as well from an early career perspective, or definitely within HR where we sit. Maybe we've got this to look forward to, Ross, that we are also pretty much a kind of 9-5 working hours in lots of ways. It is a little bit more flexible, and it's definitely not somewhere in my team anyway where we are kind of looking at people's time or checking to see if they're online, etc. It's a case of kind of managing your own workload, and I think also trying to be flexible to make it work for you. And you mentioned the M&C Council there. So for anybody on the call, that stands for our Marketing and Communications Graduate Council. So that one is also something I'm involved in. So I guess, Claire, we'll cross paths on that. But it's basically some kind of extracurricular councils that are graduate led, which get involved in kind of, I guess, engaging with the graduate cohort. So it might be things like the Engagement Council, Marketing and Communications, or Innovation and Development, etc. So there's always something extra, I guess, you could take on in terms of responsibilities to kind of upskill and widen your network and your responsibilities. And I feel like I'd maybe be amiss that, Kenny, I'm guessing from financing solutions or structured finance as it used to be known, perspective, your hours are probably a little bit longer than 9-5, I would imagine. What's a day in your life like?
As you mentioned before, it really does vary. For example, today I came in, I had quite a few emails, especially because I'm rotating my desk in a couple of weeks. So a lot of deals I have to close up. My role is quite customer facing. So I might have a couple of client calls in a day, have to maybe read up on notes and stuff that we're doing for the clients so that we can update them on what we're doing for them. Obviously, you want to make sure that they're happy, and also take minutes in the notes and then type that up later and send it to the team. As well as that, we have some team chats as well to figure out where everyone's at, what deals are currently on at the moment. I will sometimes reach out to other members, directors, to say if I have some spare time and I want to help them out with some of their deals as well. I think my hours aren't as bad as some people may think. It really depends on the day. Most of the time I log in at 9 o'clock, maybe on a Tuesday a little bit earlier for a call. But and then I tend to finish around 6:30. Very rarely have I stayed on beyond maybe 10, 11, but I think maybe it's the team I'm on. If you do a finance solution rotation in graduate scheme, some of the other desks are a bit more intense, but even with that, I think they really do push having a work-life balance. You shouldn't really be on way past like midnight, and they will encourage you to go on lunch. I think everyone has lunches here. As Claire mentioned, have your 1 hour, and then make sure if you're overworked that you let your manager know, and then they're really accommodating here. So, but today it's usually quite good.
No, that's brilliant. Thanks very much, Kenny. And yeah, I guess for the majority of the programs on the graduate side of things, it will be more like 9 to 5. But yeah, absolutely. There are some, like our financing solutions, maybe like say NatWest Markets, where it will just be slightly different in terms of working hours. So thanks for bringing that to life. Okay, let's go a wee bit more personal then. Ross, I might direct this one to you, but thinking around kind of your early career journey, have there been any obstacles, I guess, that you've had to overcome to kind of get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I think it's all the stage of, like, I'm sure that you're at now, of going through sort of probably quite a few processes, and it can sort of feel like it's sort of bogging you down a little bit. I think sort of the bit that I struggled with is probably psychometric tests. I myself have sort of got dyslexia, so I feel like that was a little bit of a struggle through that. But what I'd learned is that there's plenty of accommodating sort of parts of the application process that can help you along with that. So for my NatWest Assessment Centre, I got 25% extra time in line with my exam guidance, and that really helped me to actually thrive at my assessment centre. And I think sort of if I was to look back and give myself advice with that sort of thing, it is to just ask, because there's sort of there's nothing wrong with sort of just trying to make the best of the situation and sort of giving yourself the best chance to do it. And I think that would be the best thing, and just practice the psychometric tests, because it does get better.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Ross. And yeah, I loved you saying there that would be your advice looking back, just to ask the question. I think absolutely we do try to be as accommodating and inclusive as we possibly can in the application process. So let us know if there's anything that we can do to make the process I guess work for you, or any additional requirements that you might have. And we do need you to flag that in the application process at the start if you are going through. And I think hopefully we might be able just to pop it in the chat. Ross, I think you had a book recommendation, didn't you, for Psychometric Tests. So let's see if we can maybe get Boost Your Skills events, just to pop that into the chat as we go. And then following up on that question, which I thought was brilliant, around kind of your advice to your younger self, or if you could go back, or your early career advice. I think that's an interesting question. So I might put that to Claire this time. So what would be your early career advice to your younger self, say?
I think probably echoing a little bit what Ross was saying, probably feel like prepare as well, like when you're talking about the psychometric testing. I think if you do get kind of invited to take tests or assessment centres, I think it's just preparation is like absolutely key. I think anytime I got caught out, it was to do with kind of a lack of preparation on my own part. I think in terms of the testing, what I used to always do was I used to kind of Google the company and their kind of like online testing beforehand. And a lot of the time you can find out test providers, or if you go on student room forums, there's links to practice testing and things like that. And you can sign up for free trials and you can kind of have a go at them beforehand. I think for me, I got caught out once as well. I was like a one-to-one interview, and it was like STAR examples. And I obviously prepared situation, task, action, result. And I would obviously have like a few kind of in the bag that you can adapt depending on the question. But they were using a reflect element as well, which I hadn't prepared enough that I didn't know that. So I kind of got put on the spot with that a little bit as well. yeah, stuff like that. And make sure if you do have like an interview, you're making sure that you're researching the company and you know who you're applying to and you know their values and stuff like that. I would say is just key.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Claire. And actually, we will have a little bit on the STAR example in a couple of minutes. So yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. And yeah, I feel like that's something that's probably quite specific to NatWest Group, that we love asking a question after the STAR. What would you have done differently? So I think probably is a good exercise to be doing anyway, that whenever you think of these things, there's always continuous improvement, how to make the process better. So something to be thinking of. But yeah, if you haven't thought about it at all and you just say, oh, nothing, then I guess that could be might not be the best answer. So I think, yeah, trying to have someone prepared for that is always good. Okay, I'm going to ask one final question and I'm going to put it towards Kenny, conscious of time, and then you can ask anything else to our grads when we move into the Q&A in a couple of minutes. But Kenny, what would you say that if you were to apply again to NatWest Group, what would you do differently?
I think one thing I would do differently is that I would be a bit more confident when reaching out to some people who are actually on the scheme. I didn't do that at all. And then I think I wasn't quite sure what structured finance was. I didn't really know what I was trying to get into. I think I had a bit of an idea, but I wasn't fully sure. So I wish I did a bit more networking beforehand. I did have people come into my uni back then, try to get their contact details, especially because they were offering it, and just reach out to them, try and understand what I was doing. So I think whichever internship graduate scheme, you do get the opportunity to go to events or when people come to speak to you at your university and they're offering the connection, definitely make that connection. Just drop them a line. Thanks for coming to speak to us. And if you have any questions later in the process, you have someone that you can go to and direct those questions to, because it helps a lot in the interview when they ask about the bank. You can say, oh, I've already spoken to so-and-so person. And if you have any worries or queries about the interview or the scheme itself, you can direct the questions to them. They can hopefully reassure you / give you all the information that you need to know for your graduate scheme. So, or internships. That's one thing that I would have done differently.
Brilliant. I promise I haven't paid Kenny to say that answer. It sounds like you're promoting the reason that I do my job of, yeah, absolutely, doing events and connecting in with people. And I think trying to add that human element so that you can put a face, I guess, to a company. I think definitely you can't underestimate how important that is. So yeah, thanks for saying that, Kenny. All right, let's go back if we can to screen sharing just for the last couple of slides. If that's all right. And I think, perfect. Yep, and if we go on to the next one from there, moving on to the application side of things. So we're going to just pause for a second before we do. Again, just to find out a little bit more around our audience listening today about what parts of the application worry you. So yeah, perfect. The poll should be on your screen at the moment. So this is what parts of an application process are most daunting to you. So 4 different answers there. So you can either do psychometric tests. So that's those online tests like verbal reasoning, numerical, etc. Situational judgment tests, video interviews, or assessment centers. So similarly to before, let's get it up to say, if we can, about 80% of people voted. It's still anonymous, so we can't see any names. It just gives us a bit of an idea in terms of how people are feeling. And then I can see if we can direct any questions towards that in the Q&A. Perfect, then let's share results. Okay, interesting. So we've got definitely the majority of people are feeling most nervous about video interviews, and a couple of people feeling nervous about the psychometric tests, which I guess hopefully is good because we've mentioned that one a little bit, and you've got Ross's book's recommendation in the chat already. So definitely have a wee look at that. Normally universities as well have all sorts of different resources that they can share with you for practice tests for psychometric. I think the key thing there is just practice. And video interviews we'll come on to in a little bit of a second. So great, thanks very much. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So on this slide, you'll see that this is a little bit around what the application journey would look like for you at NatWest Group. So there's 5 different stages of our early careers application process. And again, I won't go into this in too much detail, as our recruitment team will actually be able to, they'll help you through the process. They'll guide you through it with different instructions if you were to apply. And we also ran a previous webinar called How to Get a Job with NatWest Group, where I go into all this detail go into all the application side of things in a lot more detail. But as a brief recap, the first 4 stages on this take around 10 working days to complete, providing that you do everything that we need you to do promptly. When you pass your video interview, you might have to wait, it sometimes can be a couple of months to get an invite through to an assessment centre. So taking each step kind of bit by bit, just to explain it in a little bit more detail. Firstly, you would submit an application form. So that's just asking for basic details like your address, degree, gender, contact details, etc. I think it goes without saying, you want to make sure that that part is correct, and definitely make sure that your contact details are correct as well, because if you are successful and go through the process, then we'll use those details to contact you. Once you've completed that form, you literally click submit, and then you move straight through to the situational judgment test. Now, this is a series of questions of types of work scenarios that you could encounter working here. And the scenarios were actually shared by graduates in previous years on the program. So they are kind of real live examples of things that you might come across. And you then have to rank how you would react in that situation according to different actions. So there's no time limit on the situational judgment test in terms of how long you have to do it at that time. And I think the key thing here is trying to get into the mindset of a NatWest Group employee. So thinking about maybe like our purpose, what we kind of, our mission statement as a bank, a little bit around our values, which we've just refreshed actually. So worth having a look on our website. And trying to kind of think, how would somebody who's working for that company, how would they react? What would be the right thing to do here? And then whilst doing all of that, trying not to overthink your answers too much. This is definitely a part of the process that is two ways. Ultimately, you want to be in a company that's going to reflect your values, I guess, and your ways of working. So you want it to be somewhere that it feels like the natural responses you're giving will suit that company and you'll be a good fit for them. Next, we have our online tests. So first of all, there's a numerical test, which checks your basic understanding of numbers. So things like percentages, ratios, etc. And then there's also a verbal reasoning test, which looks at your comprehension and I guess logical reasoning side of things. Those tests are timed. And I think that the main thing, as I said before, is just to do as many practice ones as you can. We use a platform called Talent Q. So if you want to get a specific example of a NatWest Group psychometric test, then try out that platform and it allows you to do some free ones. If you pass those stages, then you get through to the video interview. Now, normally, actually, it's not surprising that that was the most, the one that people voted for the most. I think this is often the part of the process that people find the most daunting, particularly because it's a one-way video interview, which means basically that you are recording yourself speaking on camera, but there's nobody at the other side kind of watching it live. To reassure you, there is a whole team of actual humans who will be looking at every video submission. So it will be viewed by an actual person, but it's sent into that team for review and it goes into a bit of a queue rather than being watched live at that moment, like say an assessment centre. So during that video interview, and I'll come on to kind of what we're looking for in more detail in a second, definitely a really nice chance for you to show your personality kind of for the first time. So trying to bring your skills and your best competencies to life and showing us why you want to work for NatWest Group and why you want to go into the particular program that you've applied for. There's about 7 different questions during the video assessment and they are timed. You won't see the questions before you start, but you'll know how long you have on the questions. So maybe try a couple of practice ones in advance and filming yourself to fit in within that time limit. The final stage is the assessment centre side of things. So we are still running these virtually this year. And in terms of, there's a couple of different activities that you would take part in a virtual assessment centre. So there's a group discussion where you work together with other candidates to address a business challenge. And this is all about trying to see how you would interact with other people. Next, there's an interactive activity where you'll have a meeting with a colleague or a customer. And so that's maybe having a look at your one-to-one skills or maybe some of that kind of critical thinking. So taking information and making it a little bit more simple. And then there's also like a one-to-one interview with an assessor. So very similar to the video interview, and you can use all your same answers from the video interview during the assessment centre because it's different people assessing you. So again, similarly, your motivation for joining us, for joining the programme, and then talking through some of those competency-based examples. So I'm going to move us swiftly on to the next slide, which is going to cover the golden question, which is, what are you looking for in candidates when we do apply? So the answer is that we have a number of different competencies, And we call these our critical people capabilities. And this is what we would like to see our employees have, or what we would like our future employees to develop. So at every step of the process, we are assessing you against these capabilities, and they're all in the little colourful circles at the top of this slide. Now, officially, these capabilities are called improver innovator, critical thinker, trusted advisor, change ready, and connected. But I appreciate these terms are quite internal sounding, they're a little bit jargony. And so I've put other terms that you can consider them as, and that's what's written in the circles there. And at the very end of the session, we'll give you a link to our brochure, and you can find out more information about our critical people capabilities there. So don't feel you have to take everything down right now. But I think that's kind of what you want to be displaying throughout the whole process. A couple of other things that we're looking for, or things to remember, is that you need to be on track for a 2-1 for the majority of our programs. There's one exception, and that program is RBS International, where you need a minimum of a 2-2. And I've seen a couple of questions on the QA chat already, which is brilliant. A few of them are around kind of what would suit certain people from specific subjects. Now, it's quite interesting. You can come from any degree background and apply to NatWest Group. So you can be studying any subject at any university, and you would be eligible to apply. So we're not actually looking for any specific degree, which again is kind of for social mobility and inclusion reasons. We want to reach a variety of diverse talent, and we feel that kind of by not limiting the different degree subjects, that's our best way to do it. We're also not looking for a CV or a cover letter when you're applying. So again, we're just looking for you to display those competencies, and we should get everything that we need from our process individually, rather than also looking at a CV. There is a small exception, and that is the NatWest Markets program. Again, that's kind of like one of 17 pathways where you do need a CV or cover letter, but for the large majority, you don't need that document. In terms of what would be helpful experience, and as mentioned, you don't need any specific experience. You could apply with no experience and use your kind of, say, life experience to display these competencies. And that's the whole point, that you can get them from a variety of different kind of aspects of your life. But we still get asked the question, but what would be helpful? What do you want to see? And I've put down a couple of ideas just there for you on the right-hand side of the screen. So thinking about what you do at university. So whether that's any society involvement is always really brilliant to draw upon, for example. Or just not forgetting your actual whole university experience. So whether you moved country, perhaps to start university, that's a brilliant one to show change ready or being adaptable and resilient. Or maybe you've been working on a project at university where you've got somebody that's not pulling their weight. So that would be another kind of example that you could use. Part-time jobs are always a brilliant one to show a variety of different skills. Industry work experience, I think, whilst not necessary, does help to show the motivation as to why you want to join that specific program. All right, if we move on to the next slide, I'm going to whiz through this quickly because I want to leave us some time for Q&A, but I think that maybe it's not come through on the start. Oh no, there we go. Yep, so sorry, a couple more clicks. These are my top tips for applying. And we've covered it a little bit already, but using that STAR technique is a brilliant way to answer competency-based questions. It helps to keep it really focused, and it helps to make sure you're covering all parts of the question and really highlighting what you did specifically in that outcome, rather than say the group, and trying to kind of bring to life the situation. So again, just Google that. I think your career service will be able to give you loads of information on it, but that's a brilliant one. And then on the right-hand side, this is a way that I've kind of prepared for interviews that helps bring it to mind in my mind. But I do a bit of a table, as you can see. So it's quite small, but in columns going across, I'll have the different competencies that I want to display or that I want to highlight. And then I'll put a bit of a cross-section of my life, say. So I might have my part-time job. I might have moving country for university as an experience. Maybe I have like a university project I've been working on my dissertation, or I can't even read the society involvement. So basically kind of have a bit of a cross section, and then you can pull out different examples and you can map them into a table so that when you go into an interview, you think, right, I've got loads of different examples here. And it's quite a nice way to prepare. All right. Let's move on to a bit of a Q&A at this point. And I'm going to just check the Q&A box to see if we've got anything coming through. Let's see. I think we've got a couple of questions about, kind of people doing different subjects, like say criminology or what else? Possibly counselling, psychotherapy. And I think that comes back to the point that you can be studying any subject at all. And I think it's trying to align your skills to what suits best. And I think that does probably require a bit of research on your part. So I think it was a little bit about what Kenny was saying, trying to go along to events like this, maybe reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn that perhaps went to your university that's on a program that you think looks interesting, and trying to figure out what types of skills would be helpful, because technically you'd be eligible to apply to any one of the programs. You might also be able to, what am I trying to say, limit it down, that's a terrible expression, filter it down perhaps by location of the program. So say you want to be exclusively in London, then that would rule out a couple of programs. Maybe you want to be doing a 2-year program instead of 3-year, that might rule out a couple more. So I think by process of elimination, you might then get down to a couple of programs that you want to look into a little bit more detail. There's a question there around society experience, and I might just put this towards Claire, say. So Claire, I wonder if there was maybe any experience that you think helped you stand out kind of whilst you're at university that you used in your application. Were you maybe part of any societies, or what type of experience do you think helped when you were at uni?
Yeah, I can answer it. I think I wasn't actually involved in any societies at university, but I did do like a part-time job I mentioned earlier. I worked at Santander, like in a call centre, for the 3.5 years, and being kind of honest, I think in the interview that's probably what I spoke about most. I think it's kind of considering soft skills and transferable skills, communication skills. I think when I was there, I used to kind of help train new starts as well. So in terms of if I was thinking of a star that was kind of more aligned to leadership skills as well, I probably spoke on that experience. I think that probably is what I spoke about most, to be honest with you, in my interview. So yeah, definitely, I wouldn't discourage you if you're maybe not in a society, but you do placements or something, for example, or you have a part-time job, definitely still applicable, I would say.
Trying to come off you. Brilliant answer, Claire. Thank you very much. And I think, yeah, you've covered everything I would have said there. So let's leave that one there. I wonder then maybe a question to Ross. Ross, how did you manage, say, kind of doing different applications at one time? I know that you were working for a bit, weren't you? So were you managing kind of working whilst also applying to things, or talk us through how you kind of balance the workload during application season?
Yeah, so I think, I was in my 3rd year when I was applying to stuff, so I'd had a bit of work experience before I went to uni. But I think sort of my top tip for that would just be just try to be as structured as you can about it. I think it's incredibly sort of hard to keep track of what stage you're at of each one, where you've applied to. You'll find yourself getting emails and like inboxes 2 months later and you've completely forgotten about it. So I think it's just like, what I did is create an Excel spreadsheet and sort of just color coded it. So I'm a very visual person, so color coded it to sort of where I'd got to in that process, and then I think that really helped. And then I just had maybe a couple of important links that I'd found sort of about the company. So obviously with NatWest, we do have our critical people capabilities, which helped me massively in the interview. So it'd just be finding important little brochures like that and then just linking them in there would be my top tip.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ross. And then maybe a wee question to you, Kenny, that maybe you don't get nervous, but if you do, how would you, or what advice would you give to somebody to kind of stop being, or to help with nerves, say during an interview or during particularly that video interview? Because it can be really nerve-wracking, especially when you don't get the reaction from somebody live in that. How did you manage that?
Firstly, I definitely got nervous all the time, no matter how many interviews or video interviews. Everyone was a nerve-wracking experience. For me, one thing that really helps is preparation and practice. I think a lot of universities offer that sort of practice for interviews that you can take advantage of, and it really does help. But if not, even with your friends and family, get some practice questions online and practice answering questions. It does help. I know when you go to a real thing, it's quite different because you don't know the person. So I'll make sure I'll take my time. If you are unsure about questions, just take a second and use a filler line like, oh, that's a good question to think. Or just don't rush into it if you really don't know. Just sit for a minute, think about your answer, and then say, I think they will really appreciate you more delivering a well thought of question as opposed to rambling and then getting a bit confused. So just take a deep breath. I remember they're all people and most of them went through the same experiences as you. They all know how you're feeling. They're not trying to catch you out. They are trying to get people onto the team. So just try and be confident, take a deep breath, and then just know you can try your best, really.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Kenny. No, I know. Yeah, I don't want to say that you get nervous because you might not, but I think, as you say, realistically, most people really do. And I think remembering as well that the assessors will know that most people are nervous and that you might just need a little second just to think about it. And I think being as prepped as you can definitely does help to settle my nerves as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing. All right. So I think we've covered the questions. The website, the link to apply, I will be sharing that in the next slide. In terms of kind of internships, there's a question there about fraud or corporate finance. We do have some kind of within the commercial banking side of things for internships. There's a couple that are still open for applications. So I would check out our website for them. And then there's another question, I'll try and fire through a couple here. Pass mark for the assessments. Yes, of course, there is a pass mark for the assessments, but I'm afraid I can't share it. I feel like that would be probably a little bit too much information, but there are different benchmarks that we have, and it's all set with our kind of behavioral science team. And some of them are a little bit more program specific. So maybe if you're going into more of a numerical based program, the pass mark might be a little bit higher, but yes, there is a pass mark. Can't share it, but it is kind of set closely by different teams in the background and some AI, etc. A question there about being considered if somebody has a 2-2 degree and extenuating circumstances. Yes, absolutely. If there are extenuating circumstances, then please still do apply. And then just let us know about the extenuating circumstances at the time. We might need perhaps some proof, etc. But our recruitment officers, I've just made up that term now, our recruitment team will be able to help you as you go through that. So just let them know that there are extenuating circumstances, and we'll look at that on a case-by-case basis. Final question, Ross, I'm just going to put towards you. There's somebody here who has been very honest and has said that they've got dyslexia and dyspraxia. So thank you for sharing with us. And I know, Ross, that you mentioned that you had dyslexia in the program and when you were applying, and I know that you mentioned a little bit about getting extra time, but is there anything else that you think that you wanted to add to that part? I think this person is worried that it might affect them with the numerical side of the application.
Yeah, no, so I think I'd stress as much as possible, like if you do have any sort of special circumstances for your exams, like 25%, 50% extra time, please do raise that in the recruitment process. I know when I went through it, we're more than happy. All we want to do is see you and see you at your best. We're not trying to trick you or anything like that. So, and I think, you know, we're just going to put everything in place that we can, as most other companies will, I think, to basically just help you to be the best that you can be. The numerical tests, they can be just quite daunting. I think all I just did was I'm terrible at maths. I'm on the HR program. It was not my strong point ever. And I think it's just about practice, just about getting that extra time. And as I say, we're just going to help you through this process as much as we possibly can and do everything we can to do it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And what a positive note to end the Q&A on, Ross. Thanks very much. Let's bring up the slides again, if that's possible. And we've got one final poll that we want to ask you. So a bit of an exit survey. And there's a final slide to come, so don't drop off yet. But basically, this is just for us to get a bit of an indication as to how the event has been. Feedback is so important to us so that we can help kind of delivering helpful events that are right for you. So yeah, let us know. How do you feel now about applying to internship or Insight Week? Do you feel more confident? Do you feel the same? Or do you feel less confident? Again, it's anonymous. We won't be offended. You don't have to pick any particular answer, but we'll give it another second, and then let's share results when we're ready. All right. Yay. Nobody's feeling less confident. That's brilliant news. And we got a 50-50 split of people feeling more confident and some people still feeling the same. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. And then for the people that are still kind of feeling the same, let's share some follow-up resources of things that you can do at this point. So first of all, if you do want to apply to work with us, I would encourage you to check out our brochure and our website for more details on our program and application links. We do recruit on a rolling basis, which means that we don't have specific application deadlines and we will close them when we have enough applications in the pipeline. So we have closed a number of programs already, a lot of the graduate programs and a fair number of the internship programs. So definitely do apply as soon as you can, while still trying to take the time to make a tailored and focused application and choose the program that's right for you. I'd also say more generally to sign up to our talent pool and check out any other similar development-focused events that are happening soon. If you still have questions that we haven't managed to get around today, or if you think of something afterwards, then we are actually going to be running, and this is NatWest Group specifically, a drop-in chat session on Friday, this Friday at 11 a.m. And there's a link to sign up on those slides, and we'll make sure to share the slides afterwards. But other than that, we do hope that you're leaving this session feeling more confident about internships and insight weeks. We've shared details about what's involved, tips on how to apply. You've heard personal experiences from our grads, and you've also had a bit of a chance to ask us some questions as well. So we really hope that you found this session helpful. And we also really look forward to receiving any future applications from you all. So we're wishing you all the best, and thank you very much for listening and for joining.
Thank you guys so much. That was fantastic. It's great for me as well, just to be able to listen. I learned tons. So once again, if you do have any more questions, we've put the link for the drop-in chat in the chat box. So feel free to use that. And again, there's links to the books that have been recommended by our fantastic panel. So again, once again, guys, thank you so much. It was fantastic. It was great to learn. And hopefully we'll see you guys soon.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.